Thank you for staying with us. Flight delays and cancellations remain a recurrent challenge in Nigeria's aviation sector, with disruptions linked to weather, technical faults, or operational issues. In our next report, our correspondent Aliyu Kabir examines the causes of these disruptions and the way forward for a safer, more reliable air travel in Nigeria.
And cancellations remain a major concern for air travelers in Nigeria, with passengers demanding accountability and compensation.
I have an appointment to catch before the bank closes. Bank have closed. The airline delayed us in Lagos. These are things, there should be penalty.
They have cancelled my flight back to Ibadan. So I'm stranded here, but I'll have to go back now, book a hotel again and stay.
There's a woman I saw here, she's so stranded. Even up till now, she's still around. She doesn't have money, she doesn't know what to do. She has finished her conference and she's going to Calabar. She's supposed to leave here by 8:20 in the morning. Up to this point, she's here. I think there's need for compensation. Put such people in a hotel.
Under Part 19 of the Nigeria Civil Aviation Regulations, passengers have clear rights, refreshments after 2 hours of delay, a full refund of rerouting after 3 hours, and 25% of fare for domestic flight cancellations and 30% for international.
With improved infrastructure, we will have probably we would have shortened delays in the schedule of the operators, because these delays, 95% of them are beyond your control of the operators.
The airline, as a matter of regulation, owes passengers adequate information and timely too. Where it doesn't happen, I would hold the airline responsible.
We are very concerned about issues of delays and cancellations of flights, but we know that this has to do with the capacities of the local operators, each of their individual capacities, to also get access to aircraft. Listen, we know it is not fun also for a private business to be cancelling its flights, delaying its flight. It's not fun on their part.
The authority emphasizes stricter enforcement, and the provision of world-class infrastructure aims to improve safety, security and reliability across Nigeria's aviation sector. In Abuja, Aliyu Kabir, NTA News.
Recent weeks have seen a surge in domestic flight delays and cancellations, leaving passengers stranded and businesses stalling. Hingino John Adams, who spoke with some passengers at the Murtala Mohammed Airport, reports that they expressed frustration over disrupted schedules, missed appointments and rising uncertainty.
From Kano, and the flight was cancelled, and there was no option. I was looking for a way if I could get a flight to Abuja. No way. I missed the event. I have to return their money.
Kenneth Agberia's experience is just one out of many. Even with government intervention to stabilize aviation fuel price, the effects continue to ripple across the sector.
Today's flight is 2:40, but now again they have already delayed again to 6 o'clock.
I wasn't compensated. I know we were asked to come fill forms. That flight was, I think it was in the middle of the night, so everybody was tired, and at some point we just had to sort ourselves out.
Industry experts advise passengers to file formal complaints through the NCAA Consumer Protection Desk to ensure they are not just left waiting.
With regards to delays and cancellations, the issue of enforcement action against an airline will come up where it is the airline's fault. The regulations stipulate that 30 minutes into that delay and every 30 minutes afterwards, the airline must provide information to the passenger.
It is the right of a passenger to complain if the flight is delayed without adequate information, without adequate care and compensation.
Those things are written into the contract. Walk away when you simply have a phone number close by for the Nigerian Civil Aviation Consumer Complaint Unit, and you can complain. They will investigate thoroughly.
Although recent regulatory interventions and government efforts may ease pressure on the aviation sector, experts say sustainable solutions are required. In Lagos, Hingino, John Adams, NTA News.
All right, we have two guests in the studio. Mr. Roland Iyai is an aviation expert. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Iyai.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have Mr. Hamzat Booker, an airline operator. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Booker.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I'd like to start with the airline operator because a lot of the complaints, always falls on your purview. Mr. Booker, let's look at the situation of these delays and cancellations, rescheduling and all of that, which isn't pleasant. And we know as an airline operator, based on reports, there are concerns from your own end and, of course, shortages that affects the airline. So tell us, why do we keep having this consistent problem, which they have termed as systemic?
Thank you very much for having me. But let me correct, I'm not an airline operator. I think Captain Nae is more of an airline operator than myself.
Okay.
So I'm just a consultant. I've been in operation quite all right for some years. So, having corrected that, the minister have just said that there's nobody that will invest in such kind of venture and decide to delay the flights nor cancel it without any reason. The 95% of these Nigerian airports, the facilities are not there. You've heard from one of the passengers that they canceled the flight to Ibadan. Ibadan now, maybe due to weather, if the visibility have not reached 2,500, you can't land in Ibadan. And most of the new generation aircraft can land with zero visibility. However, Nigerian airports have not yet prepared for such kind of operations. So you have to wait, and don't forget, if you have an aircraft that cannot rotate for at least 6 or 8 times, you will not be able to meet up your bills. So like the Ibadan is not the only station. So when you are saddled with weather issue, and you waited for. Secondly, Ibadan is what we call sunset airport because 96% of the airports in Nigeria are sunset airports, meaning you cannot go after 6 or 7 o'clock. 96% of the Nigerian airports. So that could be possible, the effect of what happened in Ibadan, and that's why they canceled the flight to Ibadan. So there are many reasons. If you look at the IATA 99 reasons why flights are delayed or canceled, you don't have up to 4% that is attributed to airline operators. Out of the 99 reasons that we call delay codes, IATA delay codes and reasons, you don't have up to 4% that is attributed to airline operators. So no airline want to delay flight, no airline want to cancel flight. Yes, we have controllable delays and uncontrollable delays. Delays beyond the controls of the operators and delays that are contributed to the operators. If you look at it, there are so many factors.
Okay. We'll get to that aspect, Mr. Booker. Let's hear from Mr. Iyai. Of course, based on what Mr. Booker has said, it's beyond their control. And we had the Honorable Minister say part of it partly is due to the capacities of these local operators. But the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission says these airlines have legal obligations to provide support to these passengers. So what do you make out of this situation?
Thank you very much. I start by saying that he who comes to equity will come with clean hands. If we're going to be solving a problem in the country and we do not look at the root cause of a problem, then invariably we're just wasting our time. So, like Mr. Booker said earlier, over 80%, I would say, of all the factors attributable to delays are outside the control of the airline. And a lot of people don't realize this, but if the airport infrastructure is inadequate, that impacts on the performance of the airline. And what we have in the country today is that most of the airports we have are not adequately equipped to ensure seamless operations for the domestic carriers. A lot of people don't even realize this. As a passenger, when you arrive at an airport, the moment you enter into that terminal building, your responsibility, or whoever is the airport company is responsible for you. The airline's responsibility takes effect at the point of boarding the airplane. You get checked in at the counter, you go sit in a lounge. Beyond that, you now get to go on the airplane. It's at the point of boarding that the airline takes responsibility. However, between the checking in and the boarding of the airplane, the airport company is totally responsible. Now, assuming, for instance, let me give you an example of a force majeure, for instance. An airline is operating into an airfield. It arrives at airfield, and on the way in, there was a bird strike. What that essentially means is that that particular aircraft cannot take off on the next flight without adequate inspections. That immediately would mean a delay, in worst case scenario, a cancellation. Now, one of the things we don't realize is, if, for instance, early in the morning, an airline is delayed 30 minutes on the first flight, that 30 minutes at the end of each day ends up in a ripple effect of about 6 to 8 hours. Now, the optimum utilization of an aircraft, medium-haul aircraft like we have in Nigeria, is between 8 and 12 hours in other climes. But the average number of hours operated by the Nigerian airlines is between 4 and 6 hours. That essentially means that the average Nigerian airline is already 50% at a disadvantage, in terms of its optimum utilization capacity. Yeah. So these are all part of the issues that ultimately, like I said, the root cause of this is whether or not we have adequate infrastructure. If the infrastructure is not adequate, then of course it will impact on the efficiencies and operations of the airlines. Now, the other thing we need to understand, and this is also part of the issues that we haven't looked at holistically, by the time an airline is impacted with a major cost element, like maybe a bird strike and an engine out, the cost of overhaul of that engine, depending on the type of engine, could be anything from between $1 million and $7.5 million. Now, how much, in terms of the yield of a domestic service, do you think we would need to have in order for that airline to be able to replace an engine? So when we talk about all of these things, we need to look at it. The root cause of a problem starts with infrastructure. When you address infrastructure, then you help the airlines to increase their efficiencies, and then at that point, you can now start pointing fingers to say, well, the airlines are not doing the right things and all the rest of it. So information, I agree, is sometimes inadequate from the side of airlines.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Mr. Iyayi, let's hold that thought, especially the aspect of compensation and the breach in communication. We'll pick up with all of that after the break. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying. And like all the airports in the country, flight delays and occasional cancellations at Malam Aminu Kano International Airport are increasingly disrupting travel plans for passengers, we hear, raising fresh concerns about airline reliability and passenger welfare. Let's hear from Awal Salisu.
One of northern Nigeria's busiest commercial hubs, air travel remains a critical link for business and personal mobility. Frequent flight delays and occasional cancellations have continued to disrupt passenger plans, raising concerns about reliability, accountability, and passenger welfare. For many travelers in Kano, these disruptions go beyond mere inconvenience. Missed business meetings, postponed family engagements, and unexpected financial costs are common consequences.
I have one thing to do in Kano, but for that I have to wait. I have to send an email that I'm very sorry, our flight has been postponed due to operational reason, as they said. I have to copy that particular message and attach it to my email so that the management will look at it as something that is not from my side.
You get to the airport only for you to have a missed flight or cancellation in the flight. One, it has caused a lot of pains in my business. At the end of it, there is no refund as at when due.
While some delays stem from unavoidable factors such as adverse weather or technical issues, others have sparked debate about airline efficiency and operational planning. This has prompted questions about penalties for airlines and the adequacy of compensation for affected passengers.
The passengers have all the legal rights, to seek for, remedies and whatever damages concerning the cancellation, concerning the, their business affected. So, but the issue is, legal proceedings takes a lot of time. It's not just that you just come and, file a case in a court and, succeed in 1 or 2 days.
The challenge remains finding a balance between managing unforeseen disruptions and ensuring accountability within the aviation sector. In Kano, Awal Salisu, NTA News.
Okay, Mr. Booker, you're an airline consultant, and the aspect of compensation is what most of these air travelers are concerned about. Majority don't get compensated, and I'm wondering if they need to be compensated, why are they not getting compensation? And that communication gap is another critical issue. You get a flight will be cancelled or rescheduled, or delayed, and you won't hear any communication. Why do we have that?
Okay, thank you once again. Thank you very much for this question. Yes, compensation has always been an issue because the process of even getting refund will create a lot of delays due to the bottleneck of the processes. Now, don't forget, most of these aviation charges you pay in advance. You already paid this money in advance. So somebody that had bought your ticket 1 week or 2 weeks ago, and there is issue with that flight, already that money has been utilized due to, so you will need, the law says, okay, at least 2 weeks you can give them, but outright cancellation, you have to refund the passenger. But it's not about the refund. When you don't meet up with your responsibility, like transporting that, how much are you going to even compensate somebody to be able to make that person happy? Look at from what one of the passengers says. He has a program. Because of the cancellation, he has to miss that business. How much are you going to pay him to be able to meet up, to be happy? Yes, the procedures are there. NCA has given the guidelines. When you cancel flight, it's automatic refund. But passengers will tell you, all I want to go is, I want to go to my place. That's all. They don't care about the compensation. Now, yes, talking about communication, sometimes the stations are waiting for decisions from the OCC, the Operation Control Centers. Maybe they are trying to look at ways by which they can be able to do something about that delays or cancel. Is there any alternative? What are we going to do? Is the aircraft AOG? If there is AOG, do we get a spare parts that we can quickly, where do we get the spare part? Or how do we take the engineers from that point to where the aircraft is and all these things? These are all processes that will create miscommunication from the stations. So mostly the station managers will just tell you that, sorry, we are trying to resolve this issue. Please give us time, give us 1 hour. We'll get back to you and all these things. But passengers will continue to agitate and say, look, tell us something, tell us something. At that time, the station don't have the correct information they can be able to give because the Operation Control Center are trying to look at issues, how best they can address the situation. Is it going to be cancelled? If they are going to cancel, cancellation is the last option on every airline. It's the last option. So they always want to see, okay, can we bring this aircraft to operate? Can we delay the other side so that this one can operate? Or how do we transport the engineers and all these things? So there are a lot of issues that they need to look into before they would now tell you at the last thing that, okay, we are going to cancel. Now, when you cancel, obviously you need to refund the passengers. The law says refund immediately and also compensate them with maybe 35% of their next travel. Some of the airlines even go above what the NCA recommended. Sometimes they will give you 100%. They will just because to tell you that it is. But the airlines do compensate passengers.
Okay.
But at that time, the passengers, all they want is they want to reach their destination. They are not after the compensation.
Okay,
that's where the problem is.
Okay, Mr. Bukar, I don't know if Mr. Yayi agrees with that aspect because earlier you mentioned infrastructure gap. Now that communication and that cancellation happens too often. If it's beyond the control of the airline or the last option, why are the airline operators not, looking at a permanent solution? We're not saying these disruptions or delays, it's going to be permanent, it's not going to happen. But there could be a way much better by being proactive and strengthening the system.
Okay, thank you. Again, you're bringing the ball back to the airline operators. I mean, I can say this for a fact. About 3.5 years ago, when there was an issue with fuel, the AON approached the National Assembly. The National Assembly summoned the then GMD and NNPC, and one of the solutions that was proposed was bringing online one of the refineries in the country to be able to produce jet fuel, which was a scarce commodity at the time, to produce jet fuel for local consumption. This is 3.5 years on. That has not happened. Now, let me take us back. In the last 2 months, particularly, airlines in the country have been hemorrhaging financially. And that has affected their performance in terms of on-time departures. And what is the cause of this? Fuel. In the last 70 days since the US-Israeli-Iran conflict, fuel price has doubled internationally. But in Nigeria, it has gone to 270% to 300%. Meanwhile, you will argue that we have a refinery in Nigeria, we're producing the fuel in Nigeria, how come the domestic airlines are paying much more? But that's the reality domestic airlines are faced with. As a matter of fact, in the first 50 days of this conflict, the domestic airlines lost over 150 billion naira in financial hemorrhaging. Why? If you assume that the cost of fuel in your direct operating expense for a flight is about 40%, if you increase that fuel cost 300%, it means that domestic airlines are already losing over 20% before takeoff. So what you have found in the last 2 months particularly is that domestic airlines have been selling tickets to buy fuel to operate flights. And they're not necessarily addressing all the other issues surrounding the operation of a safe flight. So it's going to come to a point, and I see this happening maybe in the not too distant future, that airlines will stop flying domestically.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, to let you understand the gravity of this, an airline in America that is well funded, Spirit Airlines, declared bankruptcy 2 days ago. And they were looking for a $3.5 billion injection from government. In the case of domestic airlines, we don't have that wherewithal. So what you see is domestic airlines losing all that money. That is their working capital. So how do we expect for them to continue to survive at some point?
Mr. Yayi, I know it's all about striking a balance because the frustration on the air traveler is also overbearing. You agree with me? But we'll leave the conversation there. Of course, this is not an issue that ends here. Let's hope those involved, will do the needful. I want to thank you, Mr. Roland Yayi. He's an aviation expert. Thank you for coming on Weekend File. And also Mr. Hamzat Booker, airline consultant. Thank you so much for coming on Weekend File. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
All right, great. So let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.